everyone, it's Mary Brownlee, licensed professional counselor and trauma therapist. Today we're going to talk about an amazing modality for healing trauma, which is called Internal Family Systems Therapy, or IFS. I'm going to explain to you in very simple terms how IFS can help you heal trauma, specifically childhood abuse and neglect. That's kind of my specialty, and this is the modality I like to use most for this type of trauma. And I will also, at the end, guide you through a wonderful meditation based on IFS that will help you get to know a little bit better some of your protectors or parts, where some of the distress is coming from that is based in trauma. And I'll tell you why that's so important to get to know some of these internal parts and the role they play in healing our trauma as well. So I really hope you find this video helpful. If you do, feel free to leave me a comment. Feel free to like the video or subscribe. All your feedback helps my channel grow and helps me to know what to focus on to help you guys better. So without further ado, let's get started. If you would like to skip right to the meditation, go ahead and do so. I will go ahead and have chapters on this video so you can skip right to it at any time if you want to as well. All right, what is a protector? All right, so authentic self versus protector. What's the difference? Okay, so if you are growing up as a child, you likely very much had your normal child temperament traits, personality traits, like who you were as a child, right? Children naturally are curious, they're playful, they love to laugh, they love to learn and explore, but at the same time, you know, they got stuff that happens that sometimes maybe they get in trouble, or they're learning along the way and they make mistakes, and hopefully the learning is positive and doesn't fill them with a lot of shame or self-blame or self-hatred. So healthy parenting is great at correcting children and guiding them without building shame. But oftentimes what happens if our families are unhealthy or abusive, protectors get born that really help us to avoid painful emotions like shame and self-hatred and feeling like we're not good enough. And these protectors are there to keep our system safe. So in very threatening situations, such as abuse and neglect, if a parent is screaming a lot and yelling or hits us a lot, or maybe they just neglect us entirely and we feel like we're invisible, all of that activates our nervous system's fight, flight, freeze, and FAWN responses. You can check out other videos. I'll link them below on the fight, flight, freeze response, FAWN response as well, and why that plays an important part in our nervous system's ability to respond to threats and keep us safe, and why trauma survivors have more of a difficult problem with this part of our nervous system. But basically, in a nutshell, if your family was abusive and traumatic, you were going to go through experiences on a repeated basis that were very frightening. And so protectors essentially get built within our system to help us survive life-threatening or emotionally threatening situations that were dangerous to us psychologically. They were dangerous to us emotionally, oftentimes dangerous to us physically. They were dangerous to our development as a human being. And you cannot be your authentic self when you do not have safety. Let me repeat that again. You cannot be your authentic self if you do not have safety in your family of origin. This is what IFS is about, finding safety within ourselves. For the first time, oftentimes, we did not have it when we were a kid. Our job is try to find safety in the world around us as best as we can, but more importantly, safety within ourselves. And so IFS is helping to restore that sense of safety and balance within our nervous system and in who we are authentically as a human being. And we want less activity by protectors. We'll go over a few of those in a second, and more activity by who you authentically really are. We want to be self-led and not led by protectors who had to keep us safe. They no longer have to keep us safe like they had to do as a child. We'll get back to that point. That's an important point here in just a moment, but let's go over some of the protectors now. All right, let's go over some of the protectors. By no means is this an exhaustive list. There's plenty more, but these are some of the ones I commonly see and commonly work with in clients who've had trauma. So you're going to have protectors related to anxiety. So again, every protector was born to help you stay safe in some way, shape, or form. If you had had safety, you would not have this protector, is the idea. All right. So if you had a very scary childhood, maybe you had a parent that was screamed and yelled a lot and they constantly criticized you, you might develop a protector related to anxiety, for example. Anxiety has a job and a role to help you stay safe. In fact, every protector has a job and a role to help you stay safe. Anxiety, oftentimes its job or role is, for example, to overanalyze and overthink every single situation to make sure nothing bad happens. If you could just figure it out and think of 50 scenarios of how to work this situation out, you could avoid your parents' criticism, or you could avoid your parents screaming at you, for example. So anxiety is there to try to prevent and mitigate danger. That's very much what we see commonly. If you would like to know more about anxiety in detail and work with the anxious part in particular, I have other IFS videos on many of these protectors one by one. My IFS series on parts will be very helpful. And I break down each part very specifically in the jobs and roles and how we heal these ones. But this video, I wanted to just kind of give you a nice general overview so that you can kind of begin to understand why this approach is so useful. All right, so depression, I got another video on depression and why it does what it does. But basically, in a nutshell, depression helps us not feel. It's very much a numbing part when we are overwhelmed and we're faced with a sense of helplessness, which oftentimes children definitely are helpless. Depression comes on board to just kind of numb and withdraw you from life so that you can stay as safe as you possibly can, right? If you can't fight the threat, if you can't run away, if you can't people please and make your parent happy and they're still screaming and yelling at you and abusing you, well, you can kind of shut down and not feel. So depression can serve a function like that, for example. Other ones that I commonly see, and again, have videos on elsewhere in my channel, like disassociation, substance use, got a video on that as well. Criticizer, that one too. Overanalyzer, very common, very similar to the anxiety protector. People pleasing, got a video on that one as well. And anger and rage. Ooh, anger and rage is the fight part. The fight, flight, freeze, fawn, anger and rage is definitely our fighter. So all of these, again, have a role or a job that they are doing to help us stay safe when we're kids. And the whole point of this is we don't want protectors guiding and leading our whole system of authentic self and taking us over when we're triggered and going off and doing what they do without our awareness. And oftentimes there's no connection between the protector and who we authentically really are. That has been broken from trauma. So that's another thing that's important with IFS is restoring the balance between who you authentically really are, your wisdom, your intuitive set of like personality traits and your experiences and that wisdom that is you. We want to restore the balance between that and these parts that just sweep you and take you over. We don't want them doing that anymore. We want a self-led system, not a protector-led system. So I hope that is helpful. Let's go on to the next. So a common question I receive is, well, how do I know what an authentic self feels like? I've never known safety, or I've never felt loved by my family, so I don't even know what's me. This is common with trauma survivors who have complex childhood trauma. There oftentimes is a break in their identity formation and development as a human being. That is going to be disrupted from repeated exposures to childhood abuse and neglect. It's very hard to form a healthy sense of who you are as a person when you've been damaged. So again, IFS is going to help restore a sense of self. If it was there and damaged, it will help restore it, and it will help you begin to grow and know who you are if you don't know who you are either. So it's useful either way. And what I try to tell people is authentic self really is that it's who you would have been as a child if you had had parents that were loving and safe. It's who you would have normally developed into, and not who you are now, for example, as the damaged adult sitting before me. So authentic self, Richard Schwartz is the founder of IFS. He has defined authentic self as having these 8 qualities. By no means do I think they're, an exhaustive list either. I definitely think like humor and a sense of fun and joy can be added to this list, but this will at least help you understand when you are in self, what that might feel like. And a lot of times people feel a sense of authentic self like out in nature. Say if they're hiking or they're at the beach, for example. That's when the mind kind of shuts off and they begin to really be in the moment and be more of who they actually are. So you could think about it that way as well, if that helps. But yeah, authentic self should feel calm. There really shouldn't be this anxious energy to self. Self is very calm. It feels connected and it's able to connect to other people in this not just blind trust, but in this like it trusts itself. So it's able to be with people in a very relaxed fashion and connect to people, but also protect itself as well. If somebody is dangerous or not healthy, we're able to recognize that and protect ourselves as well when we are in self. Curious, definitely. Self loves to learn. It's very curious. It's very open to new experiences. Compassionate, that kind of speaks for itself. Self has a wonderful sense of empathy and compassion and care for other human beings and yourself very much as well. Courage. So even though things might be scary, self has enough confidence to say, hey, I know I can make this work, and I'm going to give this a try. And I don't have to be perfect at it, but I'm going to give it a try. Creativity, very much a self quality. People who love to do art, for example, or create things, very much feel that wonderful kind of mindfulness, Zen energy that's very self when they're creating art or creating some sort of, maybe it's a sculpture or woodworking, for example. Yeah, they definitely can feel more of themselves when they're doing these activities. Confidence, I mentioned that one, not ego, but like confidence, like I like myself and I trust myself to be able to guide my life in a way that's good for me. And clarity, being able to see things accurately. So not having black and white thinking, not having very strong polarized thought processes, not judgmental at all. Self is just it can see things with wisdom. It has an ability to accept things it can't change. Even though you might have things that you dislike, for example, but you don't feel swept by things anymore, where you're just emotionally swept and have a hard time controlling emotions. So no, self is kind of this very wonderful, calm, flexible, fluid type of energy. So I hope this was a little bit helpful in helping you understand the goal of what you're trying to get to. So if you don't have a lot of self energy at first, that's normal. That happens. This is where you're going to, and this is your destination here. And what I like to say is, hopefully, at some point, you will begin to feel safe inside yourself. That is something trauma survivors struggle with. We never feel safe inside ourselves. So the end result is you will deeply feel safe inside yourself and know yourself and love yourself. And that is a wonderful, wonderful goal to get to. Right, so how does IFS help us heal trauma and become a whole person? So I've made this little list here and I'll go over it, but you've probably already heard me touch on some of these already in some of my earlier talking points. But basically, overall, what we're trying to do here is become self-led, not protector-led. The system of us is now led by who we authentically are, or wise self, and not protectors. That's the overall big picture. And we also want protectors to learn that they don't need to do their exhausting jobs anymore. A lot of our protectors are completely exhausted. They've been helping us survive since we were very small. They're very tired. And quite frankly, they would like a break, or they would like to befriend us and learn that they don't have to take care of us all the time. Right? So that's what's very interesting when you start doing some of these IFS exercises. You learn things about yourself you never realized, but you will start to really tap in and know your inner world on a much deeper level than you did before, which is very helpful, because now we can self-soothe, we can self-regulate, we can befriend ourselves and the parts of ourselves that maybe we didn't like before. We can have more compassion for them, and that's really helpful for trauma survivors. Protectors now are updated that you are an adult in the present day, you're not a kid anymore, and that you're capable of protecting yourself. Yeah, right? Who would have thunk it? When we're an adult, the idea is that we shouldn't need to have small wounded child parts that are sweeping us anymore, because they should know that our adult self is present and can help them. They don't have to sweep us anymore. So that's an important thing that comes out of this. Trust is built between yourself and your protectors, who are oftentimes, again, came on when you were a very young child and are very much age locked. They're very much younger versions of you. They're not adult versions of you. So when we begin to get to know these protectors and heal them, they also become essentially unlocked from a specific age when they started. And they begin to age and kind of grow up with us and begin to step back and let us lead. It's pretty amazing. So yeah, you can take care of your vulnerable parts. That's what's cool about this. They know somebody's there for them finally. At first, they won't trust us. We do this process. Parts rarely trust us at first. Totally normal. Where have we been, right? They're like, where have you been? Go away. But over time, they will absolutely trust and let you lead and let you calm them and soothe them and help them regulate. It's pretty amazing. Parts are able to unburden their pain and feel safe with you. Very important for us to have a relationship with our own wounded parts so that they trust us and communicate with us and will allow us to lead them and calm them and soothe them. There also is harmony in the system that is restored with self-leadership. It will feel very calm inside. You won't feel torn in all sorts of different directions and dysregulated all the time and overthinking all the time and hypervigilant all the time. You won't feel that. It will feel very calm. Trauma narrative is integrated into the present day. So the trauma narrative is the story of you. Who are you? I like to say what we're working on is the story of you. So in the beginning chapters of your book of you is maybe how you were damaged and the story of what happened. The middle part of your book is who you're becoming and how you're healing and finding out and beginning to love yourself. Find out who you are for the first time. And then in the latter part of the book is really you, kind of like a phoenix rising from the ashes, really stepping into who you really are as a human being and beginning to have purpose and meaning and beginning to really love yourself and be goal-directed in life. And those chapters are yet to come. That's what's really amazing. There's a lot of hope with this. And the story of who you are has evolved from victim and maybe helplessness to a healed whole person that is empowered to protect themselves and to live a life that is purposeful and meaningful. And that is absolutely the goal of any of our lives, is to have purpose and meaning and to feel like life is worth living. And one last thought I wanted to leave you with is integration. Integration is really when all of your parts have healed. Many of them have been kind of absorbed back into who you are as a person, and they've stepped back. They're just not really there anymore. So you are just more you on a regular basis every day. There's less triggers, there's less emotional sweeping, there's less flashbacks, less nightmares. You're beginning to just kind of settle in to who you are as a human being and authentically being able to love yourself. And you realize, maybe for the first time, that your child parts, who you were as a child, was always deserving of love and safety. You were always deserving of it. And that your child self is safe with you. If you didn't have anybody safe as a child and that damaged you, what you begin to realize is your own little vulnerable parts are finally safe with you. And that is pretty amazing. So a lot of this also is reparenting our wounded child parts so that they are finally able to be safe and they're finally able to calm down and just be children or be absorbed into the larger system of who we are, and they're just not bothering us anymore. I hope this was helpful and I hope it made sense. If you had any questions, feel free to drop them below. I'll do my best to answer them. And let's go ahead and get right to the meditation now. Go ahead and close your eyes and take a deep breath in and let it out gently. Bring to mind a protector that you would like to connect with or get to know more deeply. This will be our target part. Once you have identified the target part, notice where it feels in or around your body. Where is it located? What body sensations are associated with this part? Once you have identified it, direct your attention to how you feel towards this part. If you experience feelings other than curiosity, maybe some compassion, or perhaps even a little bit of sadness or empathy for what it has been carrying, anything other than something like these, then that means another part of you might be present and is blocking at this moment. If there is a blocking part, it might feel like you don't like the target part, or maybe you are afraid of it, or perhaps you might feel dependent upon it in some way. Just notice that part that feels that it's not one of those C words that we just mentioned: compassion and curiosity, clarity, creativity, calm, confidence, courage, and connectedness. These are the qualities of self, your authentic self. You can gently ask the blocking part to give you some space. Go ahead and try it, and ask it if it might step back just a little bit. If it has stepped back, go ahead and thank it. It took a lot of bravery for this part to trust you enough to step back just for a little bit, because we want to unblend so we can get to know your target part better, the one that you chose at the beginning of this meditation. If it is willing to separate, then you should notice your mind and heart opening up, and maybe your body might feel a little less tense. It might feel a bit more open inside of you. And if it will not step back, that's okay too. You can spend some time getting to know it. You can try and ask what it's afraid of. Just notice how it answers. But if it is safe to begin, and there are no blocking parts, we can begin to get to know your target part. And you can do this by starting to ask it one very safe, simple question. What would you like me to know? Don't think of an answer. Just wait for one to come to you from the part of your body that this part resides within. You can ask the part what job or role that it helps you with. You can ask the part, what are you afraid of if you stop doing your job? If it answers you, go ahead and warmly thank the part for sharing this with you, and let it know that you appreciate its courage in allowing you to get to know it better. Notice how it reacts to your appreciation. Go ahead and ask it if it likes its job. Does it feel really tired? Is it exhausted? Would it like your help in some way? If it could do the job differently, how would it like to do that? Ask the part how long it has been doing its job. How old is this part? You can ask the part if it knows how old you are. And if it doesn't know, go ahead and let it know your age. And you can show it some of the things you've accomplished. And just notice how it reacts to this information. You can ask the part, what do you need from me in the future? And then, whenever it feels right to do so, I want you to go ahead and thank the part for working with you today. Notice how it receives your gratitude. And perhaps, if it feels right to do so, you can hug the part if you would like to, or to reassure it in another way that feels safe for this part to receive. And you can reassure the part that you will be back again, and you would like to continue to get to know it better. At first, you might notice that it seems a little skeptical, perhaps, and you can just reassure it that this is new for you too, and you're both learning, but you are committed to helping it and getting to know it, and you don't want it to feel alone anymore. And just notice how it receives this. And whenever you're ready, you can start to shift your focus outside of you to the room you're in, and gently take a deep breath in and let it all out. Any remaining energy that might be residing within you. And as you open your eyes, welcome back. You can return to this meditation anytime you would like to continue to get to know your protectors.